Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Mechagon, one of the two new zones we are getting in 8.2. It is now on the PTR. I've had a few hours to play around with this. I streamed a few hours and then I've been playing it off stream, just kind of mooching around, seeing what's going on. Now, we are going to do a few videos on this, like probably 3 or 4, and the reason for that isn't to milk it in any way, but purely because this entire system is designed to develop over time. So even though we did have the Creator Summit where some of the guys got to go play it for a couple of hours, it's more of a case that this develops over days, weeks, right? That's the idea of this zone, and this zone more than anything is designed with that in mind, is that you can come here, you could do some stuff for a couple of hours, but after that, everything really dries up, and it's more a case of revisit it, come back, and see how this area grows. So that's my take on it now. So also bear in mind, this is the PTR, things can change. I might say something now like, this kind of sucks, but they're going to change it, and I'll revisit that in the future videos. So that's the whole point of doing it. So what is Mechagon? Okay, so we are getting 2 new zones. We're getting Najatar and we're getting Mechagon. Najatar is the much larger zone that consists of like 3 areas. That's going to be huge. Mechagon is really a segmented one island type of place. It's not very big at all. You can ride across the whole thing in a couple of minutes. It does have some extended areas that don't seem to be finished yet, named the Western Spray. I'm showing you the map in the background now. But your main town is going to be Rustbolt. This does come with the mega dungeon, similar to Karazhan. That's not available for us to test right now. That should hopefully be coming in the next few days, and I can bring you some content on that. So what they have done here is they have created 2 new areas, Najatar and Mechagon, but they have different purposes. Najatar is going to be more like your Argus, okay? That's going to be more like you're going to get weekly quests there, world bosses there, things like that. Mechagon is more your collectathon grind area, okay? This area is designed specifically with people who enjoy just coming, doing a lot of AoE, nothing particularly challenging here. This isn't going to push the limits. There is some gearing options we'll get into later when I get into more detail, but it's more a case of very simple outer world mobs, and the whole purpose is to collect, gather, farm, and then turn that into something that you want collectible wise. So think mounts, pets, that kind of thing. So if you're coming here expecting something like the Firelands or the Timeless Isle, not really. That's not going to be your jam. And that does mean that this place is going to be a little divisive. Like, if you're not into just grinding stuff out because you want mounts with various colors, if that's not your thing, you're not really going to like Mechagon. Now, I will say, just for clarity, that is not my thing. I am not into mount collecting or anything like that. It's just not the way I'm wired. If there's no real challenge to it, or there's no motivation to get something done or something inspiring, just the reward itself being a mount, even if it's cool or not, doesn't really inspire me to invest a lot of time into this stuff. So do bear that in mind, although I'll be as objective as I possibly can. So arriving at Mechagon, we get this little mini intro quest that's going to eventually arrive you here. It's quite nice. There's a little bit of RP and stuff involved with the goblins and whatever, or the gnomes, depending on who you're going to be. And then you're going to be introduced to this fabled land, this dream utopia for mechanized creatures, and the guys that are augmenting themselves with mechanization. In fact, they will mock you openly for not having prosthetic limbs, for not having stuff installed. If you don't look like you belong in the Ghost in the Shell, then, you know, you're not really their kind of people. But once you get to the main town, which is Rustbolt, you'll be introduced to the new faction. This is one of the 2 new factions for Pathfinder. So far, the Pathfinder achievement just has 2 requirements. One is to get reputation in Mechagon, and the other is to get reputation in Najatar. That's it. That's all the Pathfinder currently is. And here you're going to be exposed to what they want you to collect. As I said, this is the entire zone. This is what this place is about collecting shit. It's going around, killing stuff, collecting stuff. This zone does have more secrets in it, according to Blizzard, than any other area in the game. There's a lot of hidden stuff here. There's a lot more rares. You will find rares dotted about. None of them are a challenge whatsoever. Very easily soloable from what I've found so far. There may be rarer rares that are more of a challenge. There are some quests that involve unlocking them so you can actually spawn them on demand. And I will get into that shortly. So what's the first thing? Well, the first thing it's going to do is going to say, hey, this is the stuff we really like as mechanomes. We like scrap. Okay, we like scrap metals and we like energy cells. And go out and find us some of those. So you're going to head into the area. As I said, it's a very small zone, so everything's pretty close to each other. There's only one flight point in the zone, but that really doesn't matter. And also, we will be getting flying very shortly after, and this area is designed with flying in mind. It's very flat. You're not going to be sort of jumping over mountains or anything like that. It's not like Tanan Jungle, where there was like huge valleys and huge peaks to try and navigate and negotiate yourself around. This is a very flat area. You can just ride across it. And you're going to go off and you're going to start killing some robots that the evil king, the evil Mecha King, has got under control here. So that once you start doing that, you're going to start acquiring stuff. I will say my bag space started to fill up relatively quickly. A good 7 or 8 slots started to be filled with random items that are all part of the construction process for this island. And the construction process for the island is the big deal. So one of the first things you'll do is expose the robot. I'm sure many of you saw, he's called Pascal. Many of you probably saw this on the preview stream for 8.2. He's been a big feature of it. He looks like XT. And this is the constructor bot. Basically, he builds all the stuff that you really want from Mechagon. If you want the mounts and things like that, he's the guy who builds it. And what you'll find throughout playing Mechagon is blueprints. There'll be blueprints lying on the floor. There'll be blueprints that come from rare mobs. There'll be just blueprints all over the place. Now, most of them aren't implemented yet. I can tell you that. I found a couple. I found all the ones that it previewed me. So once you unlock Pascal, he will have like 4 blueprints available, but they'll be locked because you don't know how to make them, although you know he can make them. Then you'll find those blueprints very easily just by following the 4 or 5 basic quest lines that it gives you at the start. And then after that, to find more of the blueprints that Pascal can do is going to involve you probably going into Mechagon's dungeon for a start, and also just out in the open world. Some rare mobs drop them. I found a couple lying on the floor, that kind of thing. Then you're going to come back to Pascal, you're going to teach Pascal how to make these things, and then you get access to a number of items that you can make. Now, as you can probably imagine, some of the items are rarer than others. And this ties into the construction daily process. So every day you come down to Mechagon, there will be some sort of construction project underway. Now, on the first day that I'm playing this now, there are actually 2. One is to construct an oil drilling machine that goes near the outlet, is what they call it, the outflow, which is all the sewage basically running out of Mechagon City itself, and also to build flame turrets. Flame turrets out in the open world, which will DPS mobs. Badly, I might say. Blizzard, that really needs fixing, because they are utterly a giant waste of time. Right now, once you'll just see a flame turret sort of out in the world with a little cogwheel above it. You go and click on it, you turn in some of the scrap that you've picked up, of which you'll find lots of spare parts all over the place. Nearly every mob drops spare parts, and you'll just repair it, and you've got a flame turret. It does so little damage. It doesn't hold aggro. It only seems to attack things that come relatively close to it. It just seems like a giant waste of time. It wouldn't actually be that bad if it gave some reputation for doing it, and that might be something they add in the future so that repairing them does give some reputation. But even then, their entire purpose would be to just give you reputation rather than be useful in any way, shape, or form. They're absolutely pointless. So I really hope Blizzard does something with that, because I liked the idea of turrets when they were talking about it, but it's one of those things, like on paper, it sounds kind of interesting. Then you get them and you're like, okay, this is just a joke, because I'm not even in this area long enough to make use of a flame turret, and we're not fighting anywhere near enough enemies for it to be beneficial in any way. So, yeah, really unfortunate there. That was the first thing I noticed. I will also say that the oil rig that was the big construction. So the flame turret's like the small construction project for the day. You'll just find them dotted about the island. The construction oil rig, which is today's one, that will be a bigger project that requires multiple people to contribute to it. And that will give you, in this case, it's supposed to, I believe this is how it's supposed to work. We did speak to the guy who managed to construct it, is that you're supposed to build this thing, and then it's going to spawn a lot of enemies, like a horde wave mode, very similar to the Azerite extractor in Island Expeditions, yeah? Very, very similar to that. You'll construct it, and this will, they say, like, there's a description of it that says it's so loud, it's going to draw a lot of enemies to it. Well, that sounds pretty cool, because that means you're going to get a lot of resources, almost like a Centenax type situation. However, at the moment, it's not doing anything, and it remains at full health. Now, when the guy, there is a little mechanome who will tell you about this thing. He's like, yeah, this thing is going to make a ton of noise, it's going to summon a load of enemies, and if they break it, it might take you a few minutes to get it working again. So bear that in mind, is that you might have to hang around. They pre-warn you that you may have to wait for a little while in order to build it. As it's currently standing, it's taken 0 damage, and in fact, every time an enemy... I've been watching it for a little while. Occasionally, an enemy will spawn near it and attack it, but it does so little damage, and they actually have a little Mechagon who hangs about there called Larry the Linesman, and Larry repairs it, and other people can repair it as well. I think engineers can repair it. And so far, it's just sitting there doing nothing. It's doing nothing. Now, the guy who did finish the project, he said it was pretty cool. When he constructed it, he did get 3 waves of enemies, which were like fill the bar quests, and he got them 3 fill the bar quests, and then it just sat there and did it. So it only did its own thing. I do believe the intention for this thing is that it should break. It should break very easily. It should be under constant siege so that you go down there and because it's set in like an arena. So I'm just going to say it's not working for now. It's not doing what it's supposed to do. I believe it's just supposed to be destroyed. That seems to be the way it's looking. It's supposed to be destroyed. So, oh well, you know, it's one of those things on a PTR that you can't deal with. Now, every day you'll have a different construction project, a different one. And one of these is something that they highlight quite often. They actually have an individual quest line for this one, is to charge up these energy cells. Now, most of the bigger constructions that you could take part in with Pascal involve these fuel cells, these energy cells. You will find full ones, right? And they're blue. They're a blue drop. You will find full energy cells, but they're far rarer than the empty energy cells. So finding empty energy cells happens far regular, but obviously they're empty. They're just empty batteries. In order to charge them, you have to wait until the construction project is up in order to charge them up. So you will be building these up. If you're here day after day, you're going to build up a lot of these empty cells, and you're going to have to wait until the construction project is actually open in order to charge them up. And they then become, of course, ingredients in making the bigger things. So there are some utility functionality here that is unavailable to you at the time. And that's the whole point of Mechagon, is it's supposed to be somewhere you come down and it's different every day. Only slightly different, but there are some differentiations. You can imagine messages going out, okay, so the fuel cell charge is up today. You might want to go down to Mechagon and charge all your fuel cells in order to get them done, because it might not be up for a week or so or something like that. Again, we'll see exactly what the turnover is on these large construction buildings over the next few days. Now, in terms of the island itself, I was a little disappointed in just how varied it was. Although it is Mechagon and it's supposed to be this sort of mechanical utopia, very quickly, if you go off the beaten path, which is the central area of the island, which contains like 4 zones, so you've got the outflow, Junkwat Depot, Rust Bolt itself, and a Scrap Bone Den. Once you kind of drift away from there, even by a few meters, it feels like you're just in Tiragard. It feels exactly the same. Like there's almost no sign of mechanical units whatsoever, and it feels like they've just stuck it in there. So it's a little disappointing in that respect. Like, you kind of get the idea of Mechagon for this very sort of compact area, and then going into the greater area, it kind of drifts away from that very quickly. Although the enemies will have some sort of mechanized twist to them, but immersion-wise and being somewhere that's like a mechanical utopia, didn't really get that vibe unless I stayed like literally in like Rust Bolt or in the immediate surrounding areas of that. If you started to drift away, it did change quite dramatically. In terms of stuff you can collect, though, again, it might not be my jam, but it'll be a jam of many of you, is you start the projects to build your Mechano Spider and your Mechano Cat almost immediately. And I did find, in fact, colors. So the Mechano Cat is a customizable mount. Like, you could change the color on it and stuff like that. I found colors. I found the bronze coloring by killing a rare mob in a cave, and that gave me the bronze coloring to put out there. And one thing that's kind of cool is that the paint shop where you change the color of your Mechano Cat, if you go down to the paint shop, you'll actually see a Mechano Cat there, and you'll see various machines spray painting it in different colors, because this is the paint shop. I was a little disappointed that the bronze coloring wasn't added to that, because you can actually physically run into the paint and paint your character. So your character will get covered in green paint or red paint or whatever, and we'll get that done. I was kind of sad that if I've unlocked more colors, that the colors didn't appear as robots. I would like to see that as part of the development. If I've unlocked more colors, just give me more colors just to paint my character with. Like, what's the problem with that? That's my opinion on it. Anyway, you know, let me mess around with it and do something like, let me have a little bit more fun with that. Beyond that, though, there are just various levels of ingredients for crafting that you'll find. So I said there's some gearing, and there is. There is a vendor who will accept the materials you found throughout Mechagon, and that could be everything from the basic scrap, the spare parts, the fuel cells, all the way up to the epic stuff, which you can buy. Some of them are very expensive, like 30k, but they do drop off rares. you can buy them, and they will turn them into a random trinket or something like that. So about 395 item level is what I'm seeing on these characters, and that means that you can go out and sort of gear up alts and stuff here by farming these out. Now, it is soulbound in terms of the ingredients. I haven't purchased an item yet, so I might do one just on the PTR just to see what happens, whether or not it's stuff that I can purchase and send to another character. If I want to send some 395 gear to a different character, can I do that? I would like to see whether or not that can happen. So far, I can't really tell whether that's the case, but that'd be kind of cool. I'm sure Najatar will have something similar, but it does mean that you can get some passive gear, even if you're not here to gear an alt or whatever, or if you're just somebody who does world quests and you're not really interested in raiding or high mythic plus or something like that, and item level 400 plus gear is slightly out of reach, then this will be somewhere where you'll be passively collecting gear while you're farming for other things, because you get a lot of the other resources. I ended up with over 1,000 spare parts within a couple of hours. I ended up with 3 items that were worth, on the vendor, they're 35,000 gold each. I managed to get 3 of them just by killing rares, similar with some other items as well that the game does give you the option to buy for a lot of gold, but you can just, if you do farm the area, you will be able to find them. Now, reputation. So reputation is probably what most people are interested in Mechagon. If they're not interested in getting the mounts, they're not interested in anything else, but they do want Pathfinder so they can use their flying mounts, reputation is going to be a thing. At the moment, I did mention earlier, like, flame turrets aren't giving reputation. In fact, not much is giving reputation. I did every single quest line that was available to me, and I got halfway to friendly. I got 1695 on my way to friendly. I'm still neutral with the rust bolt resistance that's here. What that does mean, though, that doesn't mean all hope is lost, is they may be going with a Firelands approach. For anybody who didn't do the Firelands when it was current content during the Cataclysm, one of the cool things they did with that is it was actually a slow starter, and then as you hit, like, friendly and honored, more and more of the Firelands actually unlocked to you, and you were able to do significantly more things when you got to higher levels of reputation. And that meant that getting to new levels of reputation just wildly unlocked more and more things to do. I'm hoping Mechagon is like that, and this isn't kind of long, tedious grind. We have had it confirmed you can get the scrolls, similar to what we use on live, to gain you bonus reputation for doing world quests or whatever, so you can always go about it that way. However, it would have been nice to see maybe hitting friendly, because I've done a lot of jobs for these people. I've repaired workshops for these people. I've rescued their robots. I've done fair few things here, but so far, crafting, repairing things, doing construction projects, none of that is given reputation yet. It feels like it probably should. So we'll see how that develops over the next few days as we do this here. So I'm probably going to play this for the next couple of days and just see what develops here, try and do as much as I can. But for what it is, I think it will scratch the itch of players who really like this stuff. Like, if you're into pets and mounts, and one thing you're not really into is some sort of, like, high wall to climb over, which can be, that could be silly things like doing mythic raiding or doing, mythic 15 plus, then this might be your jam. This might be something you really like to come down to for a couple of hours, slap on Netflix, slap on YouTube, listen to some gobshite like myself, while you just run around and kind of just AoE everything down, because nothing here poses a threat to you as a character, at least on my druid, which is not my main current druid. This character is like 409, which might seem high to some of you, but compared to my live character, is actually very low. And it was fine. I just kind of mooched around, AoE down, which did make me, as somebody who's very into gameplay, it made me pretty bored. Like, I was like, there's nothing here other than kill more things. Not challenging things, just kill more things. It's not something I'm particularly looking for, but there are plenty of players out there who like that and just want to make fancy mounts, and hopefully the customization system is as good as it is. I will try and unlock it all. I have been looking. I have got a lot of the ingredients. That's one thing I will say. I've got a lot of the ingredients to get my Mechanocat build built, and so we can paint it and see stuff like that. But as it stands, I have to wait because I need more visitors to unlock, which is on a daily cycle. Like, I'm actually time-gated from doing anything because I've done everything I can for today without just literally farming spare parts and things like that, which is something that the level does want me to do, and we might do later down the line. So there's Mechagon for you, folks. The first day impressions, I get it, I guess. I get it. It's not for me. But I think for the people who like this stuff, I think they might have a lot of fun down here goofing around with spiders and whatnot. I have seen a couple of people riding around on their mecha spiders. So there must be a way of getting it to work. So I have seen people riding them. Anyway, thank you very much for listening. I'll see you again. Bye-bye.